Yeah, my name's Lisa Sayers. I'm a nurse, personal trainer and nutritional therapist, and I'm sort of hoping that I can give you some useful information today on how to move forward in your recovery, and also if you're in support, then just helping your clients to move forward in recovery. It's in two parts. So the first part, I'll be talking to you about some of the factors that might influence your recovery, and then the second part, so the first bit's a bit sciencey, so you're going to have to sort of, try and sort of suck it up a bit, and then the second part, I'll be giving you some practical information. If you want to interrupt me and ask some questions, then feel free to do that. If I think I'm going to answer some of those in the second bit, I'll probably just say that we're going to talk about that later, if that's okay. So, I think you can see that. So, I mean, there's some things that are pretty common to people that are in recovery, particularly if you've used drugs or alcohol or both. So, so one of the things that's common is sort of gut damage, so damage to your stomach, damage to your intestines. Okay, so medications and alcohol in particular kill off your intestinal cells. Okay, so I'm saying it is a little bit sciencey, so you have to sort of bear with me. Oopsie, sorry. And organ and tissue damage. So if you use drugs and alcohol on a regular basis, it's a big workload on your pancreas, which helps you to manage your blood sugar levels, and a big load on your liver, and also it's got a damaging effect to your brain as well. Another thing that happens as well, you probably know this, that the more drugs you have or more alcohol you have, the more you need to have to stimulate that reward center of your brain. And that carries on after when you're in recovery as well. And another thing that happens as well is this cross or transfer addictions. And when I've helped out Recovery Cafe, some of the lads have come up and told me that they move from addiction to drugs and alcohol, and then they start, moving on to foods. And there's certain foods that are what we call hyperpalatables, which are sugary, fatty, and salty food combinations. So, you move from one addiction to another addiction. Not always, but unless you've got a supreme diet, then you're probably going to move on to something else. Right, so the first bit, we're going to talk about the key factors, and there's 6 of those, and then we're going to talk about what you can do about them. So first one is genetics, and then gastrointestinal health, neurotransmitter function, I'll explain all these in a minute, blood sugar balance, addictive foods, and diet. And I'm going to break them down one by one. Okay. So the first one is genetics. So they think it's a huge sort of component of genetics to making you addicted. So they think there's lots and lots of different addictive genes, but that's obviously not the only factor. You probably sort of know that yourself. There's other factors that will influence that. There is one gene in particular called the MTHFR gene. I won't tell you what that stands for, but you can have an impact on that with health and diet, and we'll talk about that later. So, gut health. So I said about how alcohol and drugs destroy your intestines. So your gut is supposed to help you digest and absorb nutrients. So if you're not digesting and absorbing nutrients, you're probably going to be malnourished. So even if there'd be lots of people in here that don't really use drugs and alcohol on a regular basis, and they probably still haven't got a healthy gut. Help you produce B vitamins, folate and vitamin K, and I'll tell you why that's relevant later. They contain 85% of your immune system, so you think if you've not got a healthy gut, you're not going to be very healthy, and you're not going to be able to respond to infection very well. It contains 1.5 to 2 kilograms of gut bacteria. So imagine that big bag of sugar, you've got bacteria in your gut, and they play a role, okay, and I'll talk to you about that later. They produce the majority of your happy brain chemicals, okay? And it's referred to as our second brain. So if your gut's not very well, then you're probably not going to feel very well emotionally and mentally. And also it detoxifies you from toxic substances. So if you've had lots of alcohol, lots of drugs, then your liver would have been working really hard to help you to cope with those and get rid of them and excrete them from your body. So, okay, those are the signs and symptoms of poor gut health. Now, even if you've never been a user, and you might find that you've got some of those symptoms anyway, so you might find that you've got, some of this stuff might be relevant to you as well. So it can be bloating, flatulence, nausea, belching, diarrhea, constipation, pus in your stools, undigested food in your stools, sort of IBS type symptoms, food intolerances, lots of different things. And then there's some diseases on the right hand side as well. But a key thing as well about the poor gut health is getting low mood, depression, anxiety, and not being able to think properly, headaches, so chronic infections, and the like. Okay, so I said about these 1.5 to 2 kilos of gut bacteria that you've got in your gut. Now, if your gut's not very healthy, you tend to have more bad ones than good ones, okay? And those bad ones produce toxic substances. And what those toxic substances do, they travel through your circulatory system up to your brain and can make you feel irritable, grumpy, tired, anxious, depressed, and stuff like that. So they also produce inflammatory chemicals, and they can act on your gut, and they can act anywhere else in your body. So you might get achy joints, achy muscles, sort of different aches and pains everywhere. They produce lactic and acetic acid. So those are 2 acids, and their acids produce inflammatory problems. So, and also they produce methane and hydrogen. So if you've got a lot of wind, it's probably because you've got lots of gut pathogens, okay? They also produce alcohol and acetaldehyde, which is like an alcohol substance, and that can cause psychiatric symptoms as well. So, and they act a bit like alcohol, and they can give you a feeling of being drunk. So, you know. Then also they can activate a nerve, one of the big nerves in your body, that can cause anxiety type symptoms. They steal nutrients from your body, and those gut bacteria, they can travel through your bloodstream and deposit in different parts of your body. Okay? So they can go in your brain, make you feel irritable, anxious, depressed. They can go to your joints, and you get joint aches and pains, and they can go in your lymph tissue, and they can affect the way you respond to infection. Okay, so you've got these things called neurotransmitters, and they're brain chemical. They're chemicals that you produce in your body, and they send information from your brain to the rest of your body. Okay, and you've got lots of them you produce in your gut, and you use them in your nervous system as well. And there's 3 key ones. They're called serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. And some of you might have heard some of those. I don't know. Yeah, heard of those? Right, now you produce 85 to 90% of your serotonin in your gut, 80 to 85% of GABA in your gut, and 80% of dopamine is produced in the gut. And if you haven't got good neurotransmitter function, it's linked to fatigue, anxiety, depression, and mood disorders. So if you're wondering why you're coming out of recovery and you still feel crap, it might be that something underlying it is not just about, you know, what you've done to yourself in the past and recovering from that. It might be about what you're eating. Okay, so serotonin. If you've got low serotonin levels, it can affect your mood, can cause obsessive behaviours, can cause addictive behaviours, cravings, can affect your sleep, can cause constipation, can reduce your pain threshold. And also, you know, it helps to regulate your aggression, anxiety. So, you know, it has quite a big impact. Now, serotonin production is boosted by regular exercise and adequate sleep. So I know some of the lads that I've been talking to, they don't always like on a program, they have to go to bed at a certain time. I mean, it's good for you to go to bed at a certain time because you're more likely to produce this happy brain chemical, okay, that's going to help regulate your mood. And exercise as well, because I know most people in recovery are quite sort of keen to start exercising. Not only does it produce serotonin, it produces endorphins as well, which also help you to feel happier and a bit more sort of cheerful. Okay, so dopamine. So this one's pretty key. So the people that have been in addiction, whether alcohol or drug addiction, they've noted they've got low dopamine levels, okay? So dopamine is responsible for controlling your pleasure and reward centres. And most people are going to take drugs or alcohol. It's to make you feel good, okay? So they're not quite sure whether that's a product of you using drugs and alcohol, and that's affected your receptors, because you get less receptive receptors if you keep using drugs and alcohol, okay? So cocaine enhances dopamine production, makes you feel good, but it reduces your natural production. Hyperpalatable foods, those salty, sugary, fatty foods also trigger dopamine release and make you feel really good. Okay? And so low dopamine levels are linked to depression, cravings, compulsions, drug and alcohol use, smoking, gambling, and overeating as well. So it's quite a key one to try and want to restore natural sort of dopamine in your body. So, yeah, sure.
A lot of what you're talking about, when we talk about recovery from addiction, we often think about treatment.
Yeah.
But actually, what you're talking about,
yeah.
even within a treatment context, there's a lot of simple things that people can do. I mean, it sounds simple. Maybe doing it is harder.
Yeah.
Because you kind of got to overcome yourself in many ways.
Yeah.
But it sounds to me that often treatment has got these things lacking.
Yeah.
And if you go to prison, for instance, you can't control your diet to some degree. The bit you can control is the tuck shop.
Yeah.
And even in rehab or even in community programs, often we don't talk about this sort of stuff.
No.
I don't, but yet it seems to be quite simple.
It's really, really simple. Really, really simple. So one of the main things is sorting out digestive health.
Yeah.
Okay. But that requires a decent diet. So if you're in recovery, we'll talk about it later, but cash is short. Cash is really short. And if you're running a recovery program, cash is really short. And your budget has got to stretch. So, but there's a few key things, and I'll talk about it later, a few key things that you can do, that you can introduce things into your diet that will probably help you to recover from poor digestive health. So what you want to do is you want to get all these feel-good hormones, but producing them naturally rather than trying to use something like drugs or alcohol or food to get those sort of feelings. Okay, so GABA. So this is another one that helps to inhibit sort of anxious and reactive behaviours and obsessive compulsive behaviours. So, so alcohol and benzodiazepine drugs, they act on GABA receptors and they give you that whole feel-good thing. So, right, so as I said before, if you've got a sick gut, you can't make as many of those brain chemicals. Remember I said about 80 to 90% of those brain chemicals are produced in your gut. If you haven't got a healthy gut, you're probably not going to react the way that you want to, and not going to feel the way you want to feel, and it might move you on to maybe making bad choices. So just a little bit of a recap. So unhealthy gut, you might have ongoing addictive behaviour, you might have poor mental emotional health, poor immunity, malnutrition, because I say it's responsible for you absorbing and digesting your nutrients, and poor overall health. Okay, so another thing that can affect your feeling of well-being. I don't know if any of you have sugar cravings, and you have something, a chocolate bar or something like that, a bag of crisps and another chocolate bar and some biscuits or whatever, and you feel great, and you think, oh yeah, it feels really great. And then afterwards you have a massive crash and you feel really crap, or you feel tired and you feel low. That is because the foods you put in your body, they go into your stomach and they're broken down and they're moved over into your bloodstream, and when you have sugary foods, they get broken down really, really quickly, move into your bloodstream, and then you get this sort of massive sort of high feeling, and then it's a bit like, as soon as you've finished a hit or whatever, you feel really crap afterwards. So your body's really, really kind. It tries to get rid of all those sugars out of your system, but you end up laying down fat if you eat too much, so it's not great. So there's a way that you can regulate your blood sugar levels, and that's by eating protein with every meal. So I would say reduce the amount of sugar you're having, but have protein with your sugar, and that will reduce the high that you get. But so we'll talk about that a little bit. So feel free to interrupt me, because I know I tend to blur on, so a bit quickly. Right, so there's some addictive foods. So dairy and wheat in particular, they can, when people say, in my job, if I'm doing a nutritional therapy session with somebody and I say, can you cut out, what can't you cut out? What could you never give up? And they say, I can never give up bread. I could never give up chocolate. I can never give up this. I can never give up that. And part of that is there's a reason. So dairy and wheat, they contain morphine-type substances. When you break open the proteins, there's something called caseinomorph and there's something called gluteomorphin. Okay, they contain morphine-like substances, and they attach onto receptors in your brain, and you get a buzz out of eating a chocolate bar. Okay, and sugar as well is hugely addictive. So they've done lots of rat studies. I don't know if anyone's ever read any of them. They give rats a choice of having cocaine or sugar water, and 93% of the rats will go for the sugar. So they go between the two first of all, and then they'll go to the sugar. And then what they found is as well that when they've withdrawn the sugar, the rats go into withdrawal-like symptoms, like cocaine-type symptoms. So they get head knock, they get a tremor, they get irritability, they get anxious, So it's really interesting. And those symptoms, they last for months afterwards, after they've pulled them away from their sugar. And they get this sort of behaviour where they're desperately trying to get to the sugar and they can't get to the sugar. So, it's an interesting one, really. But sugar is very addictive. So, moving on to the second half now. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, so you can support your genetics. Remember I said there was one gene that you can have an impact on that will make you feel a lot better. So, normally your genes, you think, well, if I've got this gene, I'm more likely to get this cancer or something like that. There's some genes that if you diet or exercise, that you can stop them expressing themselves. So you don't have to be a product of your genes. And there's one that affects those neurotransmitters, those brain chemicals. Now, if you eat lots of green leafy veg, okay, it might not be in many people's diet in the room. A lot of people don't like broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts and stuff like that. If you eat lots of green leafy veg, if you eat lots of protein, you're going to get vitamin B6, B12 and folate, and they can help you to not express those dodgy genes that make you feel, make your neurotransmitters, your happy brain chemicals work. So that's easy enough to do. So if you're in control of your own diet, then you can put those in. If you're not, then maybe I need to come and talk to wherever you're in recovery, and I can come and help. So I'm going to go over to Yodel, but if you want me to come to the lay, I can come to the lay community. That's fine. I'll come and talk to you about how you can get all this stuff in your diet. Okay, so supporting your gut health. So we talked about how sugar and alcohol are really damaging for your gut, as I said before, and also any sort of white foods, so white pasta, white rice, white bread, cakes, pastries, all that sort of stuff. You need to limit those in your diet. You can improve your gut health by having foods that increase the amount of digestive enzymes. So if you're not digesting your food, you imagine you eat your sandwich, you don't chew it properly, goes into your stomach, and you've got these big lumps of food, they go into your intestines, and then it doesn't get digested properly. You've got these big lumps of food, there's only a small surface area for you to break it down. So you need to chew your food, and there's certain foods that help you digest your food, and there are green things and citrus fruits, so lemons, grapefruit, limes, that sort of thing. And greens would be like bitter salad greens, like watercress, spinach, rocket, and again, they're green vegetables. So easy enough to get into your diet if you want to. Celery, yeah, celery's good, yeah. You can use nettles as well if you want to go out going out in the woods, go out picking nettles. Adequate protein intake, so if you want to heal up your gut cells are made of protein. So you need to eat lots of protein. That can be fish, meat, eggs, beans, lentils. So it doesn't have to be really expensive. You can use beans, lentils, eggs, pretty good choice. Omega-3 fats, get those from oily fish, nuts and seeds. Now, herbal antibiotics, I put that one in there because if you have got like IBS-type symptoms, and a lot of people do have them, they just don't want to talk about it very often, you can take herbal antibiotics and they're really not very expensive. They're like garlic, you can buy that in a health food shop, really not very expensive. Or you can eat lots of garlic in your diet. Oregano is a natural herbal antibiotic to get rid of gut pathogens. Yeah? Yeah.
Is vegetable protein the same as any other protein?
It tends not to be such a good quality. So say if you've got like 100 grams of like soya protein, 20% of that might be...
Broccoli contains quite a bit of protein, but whether it's
yeah.
the same or not, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it depends what protein you're using. Soya tends to be less of a good quality protein. There's less of it per 100 grams. So say if you've got a chicken breast, 80 grams of that of 100 grams would be protein. If you've got 100 grams of a soy protein, you probably find that 20 grams of that. So you might not be having as much protein as you think you're having. So, but yeah, you do get proteins in vegetables as well, but they tend to be in quite small quantities. But you get all the other good things that go with them. So, pretty good. So I don't know, has anyone heard of probiotics? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, so basically probiotics are good or beneficial gut bacteria, okay? You can take them as supplements. You tend to get they're really expensive in Boots. They tend to be really expensive in health food shops. I know some cheaper brands that you can do if you have got some, if you have got gut issues, or you can have it in foods.
I was just wondering, how long should you take probiotics for?
You can take them forever. You can take them forever. Yeah. If you've got gut issues, then you would take a high dose one initially, and then you could have like a little drizzle dose. So, I mean, when I'm talking high dose, I'm talking about 120 billion little bacteria that you're going to put in your gut every time you take a capsule. And then after that, you could, after about 3 months, you could go down to like 2 billion or something. Yeah? Yeah.
I've got
Sorry.
2 young children, and
Yeah.
I've got other friends that live in Europe, and I understand that probiotics are so important to our diet that when children are put on
Yeah.
antibiotics,
Yeah.
the doctors in other European countries will prescribe
Yeah.
probiotics as well.
Yeah.
So it's important to replace.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So every time you take an antibiotic, not only does it kill whatever you're taking the antibiotic for, your chest infection or whatever it is, it also kills bacteria in your gut, and it doesn't differentiate. You generally assume an antibiotic is going to kill something that's bad, but it will kill your good bacteria as well. So you've had lots of courses of antibiotics in your life, you might find that you've got reduced amount of good bacteria. And we talked about, if you've got bad bacteria, all the symptoms that can produce. So you were going to ask a question?
Yeah, what I was going to say is that I do have a high sugary diet. I need to hear this actually. I do have lemon cheesecake though.
Yeah.
So, I tend to now have saccharin or aspartame instead of sugar, but that's just as bad, isn't it? And can be addictive also.
The only thing there are some studies that say that artificial sweeteners can be carcinogenic or cancer-inducing. So you could say that. And also they say as well that if your body's expecting something sweet, and because you've had an artificial sweetener, you're probably going to end up going and have food cravings for sugary foods afterwards. So yeah, just need to be a little bit careful about that as well. And also as well, they reduce serotonin production. Do you remember I said serotonin is one of your feel-good sort of brain chemicals? So if you're really overweight, then it's probably quite a good thing. If you're going to die of a heart attack, or you're going to think about worrying about what you're doing to your gut with an artificial sweetener. So, but for most people, I'd say, ditch the artificial sweeteners really. Yeah.
Is there a better way to sweeten foods? There are a lot of products out there now, stevia,
Yeah.
use fructose or whatever. Is there an ideal?
Yeah. So natural sweeteners would be better. So I would say honey is probably going to be the cheapest sweetener. Yeah.
More expensive option,
Yeah. Yeah, honey. So things like sort of stevia, xylitol and stuff, they're all produced from plants, but you tend to get a little bit ripped off. So honey is probably going to be better. Also, bad gut bacteria, they like sugary substances, they feed off of them. So if you can reduce any sort of sugar in your diet, that's going to be a good thing, particularly if you have got some gut issues. Okay, we just move on. So
I watched one of the things about sugar online, and they called Coke beer without the buzz.
Yeah.
Because it does the same thing as beer, but it just doesn't cross there's no alcohol, so it doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier.
Yeah.
But it's like beer without the buzz.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, there's so much sugar, and particularly like fizzy drinks. It's got so much sugar in them, so you just have to be really, really careful where you find it. So increase vegetables and fruit. So say about sort of 2-3 servings of fruit a day, and get this, so it's 6 to 7 servings of vegetables. okay, is probably going to be what you need just to make you really, really healthy. So the government guidelines used to be 5 portions, and everyone thought, yeah, I can do 5. And then they found that people weren't doing 5. But people thought, you know, they're aiming for 5, but actually that's only enough to stave off disease. If you're trying to come from a position of recovery, so if you've been quite poorly and you've been quite malnourished, you really need to have more than that. And as I say, it's really difficult to do. I mean, I do a lot of work in Henley, and people bring their diet sheets, you know, they record what they've eaten before they come and see me. And, you know, people have like 1 portion of vegetables a day. It's, you know, it's difficult. You have to be really, really mindful to get this stuff in. So stress as well affects your gut. So it reduces the amount of a white blood cell that protects your gut membranes. So it's not just your gut membranes, it protects all your membranes as well. So if you've got a dodgy gut, you probably find that you might have sinusitis, you might have something like chronic sort of bronchitis or any sort of asthma, because if you haven't got a healthy gut, you can't produce this white blood cell to protect all of your mucous membranes. Okay, and to improve your gut health, you need to remove foods that you're intolerant to. The foods that people are intolerant to tend to be the addictive ones. So they tend to be like the dairy, the wheat, and the things that people find really, really difficult to give up. So I'm saying this is like no easy task. Most people know what they're intolerant to, but they, but they, you know, they don't really want to do anything about it because they just love that food so much. And also those foods are really convenience foods as well. So it is more difficult to take those out. So if you think you are intolerant to something, then if you take it out for 10 days, you would feel significantly better if you'd taken it out for 10 days, okay? And then you know that's probably one of your offending foods, okay? Now, let's move on. So supporting brain health and neurotransmitter function. Now, what you find is that anything you're trying to support generally supports something else in your body as well. So you'll see that omega-3 intake, you need B6, B12 and folate. So these are things we talked about before from green leafy vegetables, omega-3s from nuts and seeds and fish. Adequate protein again, eggs, nuts, seeds, beans, lentils. Magnesium, so nuts, seeds and green leafy veg. Vitamin D in fish and fish oils, mushrooms, liver, dairy. You know, they're all things that if you get your meal on your plate, if you've got a piece of meat and you've got a cup of green leafy veg and another veg, you can hit all of these things, whether it be neurotransmitter health, gut health, or whatever it is. So you can get vitamin D from sunlight, but it doesn't really happen very often in this country, so you're probably more likely to get it from food. So regular exercise, that boosts serotonin, dopamine, and noradrenaline. So, you know, nice, feel-good, buzzy neurotransmitters, and adequate sleep increases serotonin production. So you've got a sleep hormone called melatonin. It's a really simple molecule, and you change it very, very slightly to make serotonin. If you're not getting enough sleep, so if you haven't got enough melatonin, you make melatonin when you sleep, then you're not going to have enough serotonin, so you need to get your sleep.
I heard an interesting thing the other day, that if you put your mushrooms in the sunlight, they then produce vitamin D, which doesn't go away, so then you've got a really healthy mushroom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So mushrooms are a good source of vitamin D. Absolutely.
But only if they've been put in the sunshine.
Yeah.
Just like us.
Just like us, yeah. Okay, supporting blood sugar. So you need to eat protein with every meal, with every meal or snack. Eating regularly. I mean, a lot of people get energy dips in the afternoon. They say to me, most people that come to me say, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I can either take a nap or I reach for the biscuits or a chocolate bar. If you eat a protein snack, then you probably won't need to reach for the chocolate bar, but it takes some discipline. Okay. Avoid sugary drinks and foods, so fizzy drinks, pastries, cakes, confectionery, and avoid or decrease stimulants such as caffeine and tea and energy drinks. Now, one of my daughters, she likes to prop herself up on energy drinks, but what they tend to do is they decrease, well, basically they cause a peak in your blood sugar levels, and then you get a big drop afterwards. So, you know, you feel great for a while, and then you feel crap afterwards. Nearly there. Okay. So this is a bit of an overview of what we talked about. So 40 genes, you're going to support them by eating 7 to 10 servings of veg a day, 2 to 3 servings of fruit a day. Happy brain chemicals, so you want the veg again, adequate protein. Brain health, you want lots of water. Oily fish, nuts and seeds. Gut health, Lots of fruit and veg again today, as I said. Oily fish and reduce sugar, grains and dairy. Blood sugar levels, eat protein at every meal. Reduce the white foods in your diet and reduce sugary foods and caffeine and energy drinks. And food addiction, this one really sucks. Reduce or eliminate addictive foods, dairy, wheat and sugar. So, yeah, not easy. So, for myself, I mean, I'd like to eat a really healthy diet, but the thing that gets me is the dairy and the sugar. That's the thing that always gets me. So I'm standing up here telling you to do that, but it's really hard to do, really, really hard to do. I'm not saying it's an easy job, so even if you can cut it down, then that'd be a good thing. Okay, and that is just a little bit of a summary of what you should be eating every day or week, okay? Right, there you go. So has anybody got any more questions? Are we running out of time? Yeah, right?
So I was going to say, if you're okay with some of the summary slides, we'll send them round to people.
Okay, yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, okay.
So a few people trying to snap and take the photos.
Yeah. Yep.
How long can these symptoms last once you've gone into recovery?
It depends what your state is in the first place. It depends what you do to recover. So it depends how seriously you take it, like in terms of sleep, diet, and whether you have got any sort of underlying sort of disease that's been related to your recovery. So this is why it's really so important for everybody. It's not just about Joe blogs. It's even more important if you're in recovery, because you've got you've come from a place further back than most people. So you've got a lot more recovering to do than most people. So yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Yep.
I'm allergic to fish, I found out on Boxing Day. Is that
Yeah.
due to what I was eating, or?
Is that something that's come on recently?
Yeah.
Okay, so if your gut's not very healthy, okay, your gut is like one cell thick. The gut lining is one cell thick, okay, and between each cell are it's really tight junctions, okay, so they sit together like that, all the cells sit together like that, and foods come into your intestine, and they should pass through like a membrane, okay, and it's a semi-permeable membrane. When people haven't got a very healthy gut, what tends to happen that the membrane becomes more porous, so it's, instead of being like a little sieve, it's like a great big bucket, and things go through into your bloodstream that shouldn't do. But also the gaps between the cells widen as well, so you get foods going through that shouldn't get through the membrane. So, and you get these particles of food that go through, and then you get a reaction in your bloodstream, okay? So it might be that your gut health deteriorated so much that now you've got foods going through into your bloodstream and you're getting an immune response to them. So it might be why it's only just come on. If you heal up your gut, then you might find that you can tolerate those foods. I don't know what sort of reaction you're getting. Is it a really extreme reaction, or is it a really extreme reaction? Or
Yes, hands going up, neck going up.
yeah. So if you were I'd take it out definitely. If you were going to put it back in again, then I would do it under medical supervision, because they're quite extreme sort of symptoms. So, yeah. But you can, if you take a food out for 90 days of your diet, one that you've got intolerance to, then generally, then you can reintroduce it again after the 90 days. So you've got white blood cells, and they live for 90 days, and they're called memory cells, okay? If you don't have a food for 90 days, then all those white blood cells that remember that you're intolerant to that food will die off, and you might find that you can reintroduce that food again. So, yeah, it's not, just because you're intolerant to something now, it doesn't mean to say that you have to be intolerant. I used to be intolerant to dairy, wheat, citrus, all sorts of things. And I did an allergy test, a food allergy test recently, and I'm not intolerant to anything now, apart from tapioca, which is in gluten-free flour, because I still want to have my bread or my whatever. So, yeah, I've got a new intolerance now. So, yeah, but it doesn't mean it's not a done deal. You can heal up your gut and recover. Yeah.
I don't like fish, fruit or salad.
Yeah.
Never really ate it in my life.
Yeah.
Started eating it because one of my peers was on a diet.
Yeah.
We made veg soup and we blended it all up.
Yeah.
It was really nice.
Yeah.
Would that taste like
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah, it's really good. No, it's a really good idea. if you don't like food, you can put it in a smoothie. So we're going to do some juicing out there. So come out and try some of the juices. And if you put, so say if you make a juice with like apple juice and put in some spinach, generally you can't really taste the spinach. So if you come out later and try a juice, and you can hide things. So you can, like you say, in sauces, in soups, in casseroles. So my kids, when they were younger, they didn't like vegetables, so I used to cook them up, blend them up, and then add them to like a tomato sauce, and then so there weren't any lumps in there. Because my daughter used to pick out like the carrots, and they'd all be like on the side of the plate. She'd have this little mound of things that she didn't like. So then I used to like blend them up, and then they'd be part of the sauce, so I could get away with it that way. But that's a really good idea. If you can hide them, even better. Yeah. Do you want to finish? Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know-
Cheers.